everybody, and welcome back to our discussion on things to consider. Before we get started, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and hit the notifications button so that you could get notified every time a video pops up. So, as usual, it's me, Veronique, and Karen.
Hi, everybody. I'm Karen Sutton. I'm a clinical social worker. I'm in the Atlanta, Georgia area. And welcome back to our discussion about things to consider.
Okay, so this time around, we do not have, do we? Or am I making up one at the end again? The baby thoughts? Maybe I might make up one. I don't know. We'll see at the end of this. But what we said we wanted to speak about today was balance. And I was wondering if we would focus more on like a specific person, balance for women in their lives, or balance for men, or for teenagers or children, or something like that.
Well, I was thinking in terms of adults, in terms of intimate relationships or marriage, whether officially married or common law, or whatever.
Okay, yeah, well, yeah, we could do that. So we just freestyle.
Yes. And so one of my thoughts, I am familiar with some couples who have had what we would call non-traditional relationships, in that a situation occurred where the wife was making more money and the husband lost a job. So and there were two small children in the home. So rather than the husband go out to search for something else, decision was made that it would be beneficial to have a parent home, and that they saw great benefit in that, and that the money could be saved versus trying to find someone to keep the children. And so this non-traditional balance was something that they had in place for several years. And I wanted to discuss this some because I know that there are, in relationships, there's several women and men who must have things a traditional way. Like, woman has to be at home with the kids, or she has to make less money if she is working, or the husband has to make more. He's got to do this. Things have to be this way. But sometimes life happens, and you've got to be able to make decisions either on the fly or in the moment. And so just wondering what your thoughts and ideals are about how to achieve relationship balance when you have non-traditional roles, or when you've had to unexpectedly take on non-traditional roles. So what are your thoughts about that, Veronica?
Well, I guess I have some thoughts, but I wanted to, as you spoke about that, I was thinking it might be good to start like from why is it that way, first of all.
Exactly.
And then we could probably speak about what we think about it. And oh my goodness, I don't say one of my favorite topics, but a topic I don't know if I could exhaust. But just going back to oppression of women, feminism, blah, 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 blah. Like, yeah, like a lot of the times people think that way because of what they've been told. And I think it has it also has a lot to do with you as an individual and how you think. I think I'm starting to think some people are just born as sheeple. Like they just sheep that follow people that are sheep. And some people, you never heard that term? Yeah, sheeple.
No, I've heard it before. I just was not anticipating that. But yes, we have a lot of sheeple in the world.
Yeah, and like I don't know if it's because people just feel like it's just easier to just go with what's going on instead of just thinking for themselves, and maybe people are afraid to be themselves. They're afraid to get hurt. They're afraid to put themselves out there. They're afraid to create, and people don't like it. I don't know what it is. But yeah, like I feel like because of that type of mentality, like we go along with a lot of things. And I mean, I'm not negating the fact that there are things that are put in place to prevent things from happening. Like women were prevented from going to school, women were prevented from making their own money and stuff like that. So it's not like they were just going along with it, but I think it's just been solidified over so long that we don't even realize that that's what was that we're affected by what I like to call the remnants of oppression. Like yeah, it hasn't. You could choose to go to school now as a woman. You could choose to, but that's why I don't judge women who fall into situations where they don't go to school, or they don't work, or they whatever, because sometimes they just don't even know any better. They feel like they don't have any other choice. So, or they don't. sometimes it's the parents over them and what they've been told. Sometimes children or like young adults, say teenagers, are given this type of adult lifestyle before their time, and sometimes you don't know anything else because it gets solidified around that time. So it's not easy for you to feel like this is not what I should be doing. I should be trying to go to school as an individual. I should be trying to make myself better or something like that.
And I definitely agree with you. And from a clinical perspective, I think a lot of what you said and a lot of my personal beliefs are rooted in the fact that people or sheeple are conditioned. And so we grow up with either the example of how it's supposed to be done, and we're either told that this is the only way, or we assume that it's the only way because it's the only example that we have. And I think also a lot of times I work with people around when people are challenged and have struggles, and have some things that the barriers that they're trying to overcome. I always like to ask people about their core beliefs and their core beliefs about themselves, because a lot of times that shapes your actions and what you do. And of course, your core beliefs, of course, are your thoughts. And I think a lot of times people are afraid to challenge their core beliefs because they're so deeply rooted in what they were taught by their parents. They're so deeply rooted in and they're invested in them because they've seen them work for others, and it makes them fearful of stepping outside of the box and considering the possibility that another way could work for them, or that often people feel like any opposition or any stepping away from how they were reared is somehow a violation or an insult to their parents, rather than them feeling that they have the right and being comfortable with being able to create their own way. There are plenty of people in the relationship dynamic I mentioned that have been comfortable either for a long period of time, a short period of time, or they made the decision that because the wife's profession will garner more income, that it's beneficial for the husband to stay home, or whatever the case may be. But one of the key things about relationships working, I believe, is that the two people in the relationship have to determine what works best for them and not feel compelled to have to honor or stick to the example they were given. Not meaning that they throw it out or that it has no value, but that you can modify the examples that were presented to you. Now, if the example presented to you is great and you love it and it works for you, then great, continue in that. But there's just a level of fear and trepidation around even considering doing something different, like veering off the established path. And so to me, a lot of that is rooted in fear, and that's just because we think only one way works, or we think we've got to do it this way, or we don't want to offend our parents, or we are ourselves too afraid to explore some other avenue that might actually work best for us. And it doesn't mean you're throwing out all of your values and all of your morals, but you may not have to do things exactly how your parents did or whatever example that you had.
Yeah, I totally agree. And for me, where I stand on it, I think there needs to be a balance with both sides, because you know how we have this talk now about us being equal as men and women, and I don't believe we equal. I don't think we were born that way. I think in certain things it's okay to be equal, as in like career, like any goals, stuff like that. But I don't feel like if gender hasn't been proven to be any type of deterrent in these things, I don't think so. But we were not born equal, so I don't expect us to be equal in any type of way. And then like I feel like saying or accepting that we are equal is kind of dangerous, because it doesn't allow us to tap into a certain parts of, like, as a woman, like my feminism, what it means, right? The strength of my feminism and the strength of your masculinity as a man. So I feel like it's hard for us to explore, because we're trying to look at the other person to know where we are, instead of looking inwardly or looking at persons similar to us, closer to us. Than, like, I don't understand how I could look to a man to see how to be when, like, they're not even anything close to me except for the fact that they're human. Like, it's not, I don't know, I'm confused.
No, so, I get what you're saying. Yeah, and I do agree that we've gotten to this place in terms of needing to verbalize being equal. And a lot of that is rooted in the fact that women have had fewer opportunities or have been limited by some, patriarchal beliefs that are, grossly outdated. But that doesn't mean that women want to carry the same weight or the same burden, but that would like to have some opportunity to explore their strengths as well as the other areas of their life that are, that are more traditional. And to me, the real challenge becomes, is there a need to have to choose one over the other? And I don't think that there is, but I think we feel that you have to be one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big challenge. But again, I think it comes into people needing to be able to determine what works for them. Like, I want to be able to operate out of my genuine self. And that means I am more inclined to follow. I'm more inclined to, to take someone else's lead. And there's nothing wrong with that. But again, people have to be able to make that decision for themselves and not feel compelled to adhere to whatever example they were given.
Yeah, I agree totally. And looking at I remember when you said the whole thing about balance and staying home, I always said that like I don't understand how, and I don't think maybe I'm not around people like that anymore or whatever, but I haven't heard anybody really downplay what a housewife does in a long time. So I'm hoping that that's a sign that we are moving to a better place as a society.
I hope so too.
Yeah, because like being a housewife is not
it's
joke.
Work.
Yeah, it's work. And it's you know what I was thinking about, and it's not just that, it's also beneficial too, because one time I was holding this kind of pasta, right? And I was like, oh my God, this is so processed. And I'm like, how, like, okay, so if I want to make pasta without it being from the can, how would I do that? And I was like, well, I have to make my own pasta at home. And then I was like, but pasta takes like hours to make pasta sauce. And then I was like, I guess it makes sense why, somebody could be at home, because when you have somebody at home, you get to take care of the things that are necessary, like your health, like your environment that you're living in, because coming home to a place that's clean, coming home to a place that's organized, it does do something to your psyche.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I think we take that for granted a lot. And I feel like that's why I guess a lot of women are feeling underappreciated, because this is not no easy work. And the other thing now too, a lot of time, I think we're in a transition period where women are working, but they're still expected to do the housework as well.
And that's where that word balance comes in.
Right.
Another area where that word balance comes in.
Yeah.
And
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I mean, I think that also is definitely where balance comes in. And also just to back it up too, that the wife being at home, as you mentioned, being able to address the health needs and all the other needs, I think a lot of times that is it's something that we're challenged with, is because we tend to place more, we have historically place more value on working outside of the home rather than in the home.
Money.
And really that requires us to really explore, why is there greater value? Why have we made it so that there's greater value to work outside of the home where you get an actual tangible dollar amount on it versus working in the home where you're the caretaker and you're providing, you're creating an environment where everybody can thrive at their best.
Mm-hmm.
We've devalued the work that takes place in the house that allows you to go out and do the external work. But then also, like you said, the balance comes into play where now, okay, we're both working outside of the home. Then let's be fair about this. We can't expect the woman to do everything in the house when we're both leaving the house for 8 to 10 hours a day to contribute to the needs. Then we've got to also share the work in the house. And what that requires is that we look at that work differently. We have to no longer look at it as woman's work, but work that is beneficial for the family. And how can we share this responsibility? And that's how you do that. I'm going to wash the clothes. I'm going to get the meal. I'll bathe the kids. But it's got to be shared.
Yeah.
Especially if you're both working outside of the home. Unless you have a superwoman who says, I'm just going to do it all. I'm going to work 8 hours outside of the home, come home and do another 6. Now, she can do that. But there's not going to be a lot of people that are going to want to do that.
Yeah. And I still don't feel like it's even healthy to still do as well. Because sometimes when you want a break, like, or like, it's like you almost have to schedule it if that makes sense, because people in your household have the expectation that you would be doing the work and doing this and doing that. And it's like you don't even know when you're going to just need just a break from everything. And then your family looking at you like, I thought you were a superwoman.
Right.
You're right, exactly. So, and I think that the value of it comes from who was doing it, which was a woman. And so because women were devalued and we're not really seen as equals, and were seen as property, yes. Like it just seemed like what they were doing was not valuable. And like even going back to slavery too, I like to compare oppression of women to race, like sexism or racism. Similar their origins too. Like you had the slaves working in the field, and up to a day like today, I was speaking with some colleagues of mine how manual labor, agriculture is really seen as is not really seen as some type of prestigious job. And I'm like, that's how we eat. That's how we
maintain. I mean, exactly.
So I'm wondering,
it has all these negative connotations attached to it.
Yeah, and I think it's because of who used to do it and where the origins, where it came from, and whatnot.
And that we were made to do it, and that was the only thing we were allowed to do.
Right.
So then, of course, when you get your freedom, you want to run from the thing you were forced to do, which, to some degree inherently can minimize the value of what was being done. Because now I get to be free of it, I run, but there's still value in that work.
Yeah. Like sometimes another thing too is how we build, and the thing is, when you categorize someone just based on the physical attributes, like a woman, just because she's a woman, she's supposed to be like this, and you forget that she is mentally a certain type of way, you also miss out on certain things. Because as you said about the type of work, like some people are built for 9 to 5, some people are not. So now when like if a woman is built for 9 to 5 and then you're not, but then you want to be a man and you want to go to that 9 to 5 and like she home, you're making each other miserable. When she could be out there working, and like you could be in the house doing stuff that you like to do if you're a creator or whatever, and you just chill, and then like everybody happy. Because there are some people that actually really do love to work.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people, you're right, who like to work. There are a lot of people that are great during the day, and there are a lot of people who are night people. They come alive at night and are energized and can work all night long.
Yeah,
I think it's a matter of people really taking the time to get to know themselves and their strengths, and not being frightened by the thing that is deemed non-traditional.
Yeah, and when you get with somebody, allowing that person to be that way as well, to be their best.
We talked about that before. We have to allow our partners to be. That's how you get the best partner. I'm not saying that we don't ever challenge them. I'm not saying that we don't ever put them to task on, achieving certain things. Being challenged by your partner is a good thing, but your use of the word allow is important, because we just gotta allow things. We interfere too much. We try to control and navigate, and we need to learn how to let some things be, because they will fall into place. We do a lot of navigating because we don't trust the outcome of things without us somehow trying to, navigate it. Some things actually do fall in place without us touching it. They do.
Oh, that's nice. I like that. Balance. I don't know if I should share this story. I'll say it and let me see how it comes out. But my husband is the biggest feminist I know. Not biggest feminist, but as a male.
But you're fortunate.
Yeah, like he is, and he would always say that too. So as a man, like he really is there for the woman, specifically the Black woman, but he is there for the woman and like her divineness and whatever. And there are still times like I have to like really pull him up and tell him like, you, because I'm a woman is why you doing this, or why you saying this, or why you treat me like this. You may not know it as much as you want to believe that you understand us. You cannot understand until you're there in it. And like we had to really find a balance, like living together for a little while. Because as much as I feel like I'm a feminist too, I grew up not even realizing that these things were embedded in my mind. Like I'm a girl and these things are expected of me. Um I have to force myself to not be that way sometimes. Like when I say that way, I'm talking about being the person to do the housework and then go to work and like and do this kind of thing. I'm not saying he doesn't do anything, but then I mean the balance. I mean, come on.
Conditioning is hard to break.
Yeah.
It's like we think about it from very, very early ages, and
Yeah.
and the thing is, we begin to do things, and things become rote and methodical, where we don't always give a lot of thought to them. We just do them, and so that's the byproduct of conditioning starting so early, that it's hard to break those habits. It's hard to challenge those thoughts. It's hard to create a new way of being and a new way of thinking. It takes a lot of intentional work.
Yeah, and there are times I have to force myself not to do certain things, because now I think we're in a really good place with that. Like we're finding a balance with doing this, doing that. Each of us like lightening the load for each other. Like you have to really be understanding in certain situations too. You cannot just say one point here and one point there, and you did that yesterday and I didn't do it, and blah, blah, blah. Sometimes it's going to be like you, then it'll be him. Like so sometimes the balance doesn't come him, you, him, you, him.
Exactly. And then and often, just in general, in order for relationships not just to work well or at their best, we have to be conscious of any level of rigidity within ourselves, because relationships
that's your word from the last time.
Yeah, relationships work well when both people are willing to be flexible, which means if someone's going to take over a task that historically was assigned to the woman, okay, then we don't get to dictate how that task is done. The importance is that the task is completed. It doesn't have to get done the way we would do it or how we would do it. But the thing is, we have to remain flexible, because the goal and outcome is for it to be completed, not for it to be done our way. So in relationships, we have to be careful of rigidity, and we have to be careful to be intentional about being flexible, because that's how we find that balance, how we achieve our ebb and flow, and we can determine, you know what, this is working. We finally found that groove. You can't find that groove without being flexible. It just doesn't happen on its own.
Yeah, and it doesn't come, and sometimes it takes actual different techniques. I'm not gonna lie, I've tried a lot of specific things. I've tried writing things down, putting things in the phone, putting things on the, making a whole monthly, what do we do monthly, what do we do weekly, what do we do
calendar. Okay.
I mean, not all of them work. I don't think men, certain things too, not just men, but people, certain tasks, I don't think they really understand how much it takes. Like, for example, cooking. Now, this is a really good example. For him, leave it up to him. He don't care if his food have flavor too much. Like, as long as it have a good bit of salt, like, and it mixed with this and that, and he get in the starch and the vegetables, whatever. But like, when I cook, like I always say, because I feel like me cooking is like my kind of labor of love. Like the flavors you taste is kind of like me taking my time to make sure I do this properly so that it could come out like this, to have that whatever end product. And like, to him, it just tasting good, so all he's doing is eating, but he's not seeing like what came because of it. Now, because I've been, I guess, doing this for a long time, I have little shortcuts, like I cut up things ahead of time in the freezer or whatever, so it's easy for me to put a good tasting meal together. But it's still an effort, a lot of effort that was made. And I see that in friends of mine, two female friends of mine who like don't like to cook. And like they really don't take it. They take it like it's not anything, like whatever. But it is a lot.
And I think with a lot of what you just said, I think one of the keys there is that what we value often, determines how we approach things. So, and we often will find the differences with men and women. the kind of things that we give special attention to, men don't care about. Like, they may in many instances be very practical. I just need to put some sustenance in my stomach. It doesn't need to taste great. It doesn't need to look good. I don't need to plate it perfectly. I just need to not go to bed hungry. Versus we as women, we may be very invested in flavors, and that we do your favorite, and that we balance everything perfectly and all. But that's because that's what we value. So a lot of times you achieve relationship value when we achieve relationship balance, when we recognize that we value different things and we value those things differently, and it's okay, and that is what makes us who we are. So even with that, and that's not just the flexibility, that's allowing for the freedom of each person to express themselves as they see fit. Again, that's how a lot of relationship balance is achieved. And just to add to that, I know you were saying, well, it's not like I'm saying he doesn't do it, but the other thing about relationship balance is just that we have to accept that sometimes relationship balance takes time. We don't know the timetable. We want to cross the finish line, but we don't know when the finish line is. We have a finish line in our head, and I guarantee you the finish line in the man's head or the husband or the boyfriend's head is different. And so we have to accept that neither one of our timelines is accurate. The one that's accurate is the one that actually happens, and that's it. All the other ones are just things that we're hoping for. So there's not a specific time that we're supposed to achieve the balance. It's the kind of characteristics we need to have in order to achieve balance. Not when we achieve it, but how we achieve it, and that it is achieved.
And I think, and like going back to what we said at the beginning about how being equal and having, and like looking at your strengths as a man and looking at your strengths as a woman. I was listening to this lecture today, and the lecturer asked, how many ideas do you think a man could juggle or someone could juggle before they run into a problem? And then he gave the answer for a man and a woman. And he said for a man, it's 5 to 7 ideas they could juggle before they could start feeling like it's overwhelming or it's becoming a problem. And for a woman, it's 9 to 11 or something like that, way more than a man. So as a woman, we probably have the capacity to strategize more, like have a little more problem solving. We able to juggle a little better than a man, and then they can. So my thing is, like, sometimes balance is in your strengths too, and in the weaknesses as well, because there's this example I used to use, and that is this example is what helped me or allowed me to be more flexible. Like, on my scale of doing things, I'm probably, like, let's say on my scale from 0 to 500, right? That's my scale. I'm doing things at like a 450. I'm doing things all the time, whatever. But like, his scale is probably a 0 to 100, and he's doing it at 99. But to me, 99 on my scale is nothing. You understand? So I had to look at it like he's doing all he can within the capacity that he has, and he's doing it to his max. So I cannot look at it on my scale of things. I have to look at it from his strength. Exactly. And I feel like that's where balance comes in.
Exactly. And I think what you just said is really key. And just to emphasize that more, we have to recognize that we have different scales.
Yeah.
In relationships, we have different scales. And so we don't just recognize that, we need to accept that. And by accept, I mean, we need to realize that it is okay to have different scales and those scales to be rated differently.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with functioning at 99 of 100, nor is there anything wrong with functioning at 400 of 450.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the goal is, I mean, when you're in a relationship, the goal is doing it well together. The goal should not be outperforming your partner. because you're not supposed to be in competition with each other. And so it's hard to achieve balance when you're in competition. You're
True.
trying to beat each other. You're trying to outdo somebody. But if your goal and your focus is, let's see how well we can do this without either one of us being depleted.
Yeah.
That's how you achieve balance versus I'm gonna outdo you because my scale counts and assesses more than your little puny scale. I mean, we're not competitors. In a relationship, you should not be competing with your partner. You should be working to cross that finish line together the best way that you can.
So any final words, Karen? Okay.
So what I'd like to say is, with our topic today of relationship balance, is that I would like to reiterate that in a relationship, you are not competing with your partner. Your goal is for you all to find the best way to work together toward whatever goals you have established, and to complement each other along the way. And with that, that requires a great degree of flexibility and a willingness to make adjustments. And for those people willing to do those things, you will achieve relationship balance without even recognizing it. That's my word for you today.
Okay, so that's it for our discussion today. Tell us what you think about balance, being balanced in a relationship. Did we miss anything? Any suggestions? Don't forget to subscribe. And as always, keep your intentions pure and have a good one. Bye.